It's on the web now, so.
Because this bumper only fell apart yesterday. I think it was long
Way
before the
before
2 minute
mark,
warning.
yeah.
First 2 minutes.
It's for 2 minutes, that's right.
Both halves.
Yeah.
Good. Play catch up with us.
Lots of turnovers.
What's that?
Yes.
I'm sure it's like.
Bet it was pretty full out there, wasn't it?
Best chance to ever beat Kentucky, too. Hey, Erica.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Good.
Any trains today?
You know, no trains today.
No trains?
No trains, thank goodness. I did think about that when I was getting off the interstate. I was like, there better not be a train today.
And take it again, do it till she gets here or whatever.
She's usually here.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
She's usually called.
There's not much parking, so
There's not
like
much
I
parking?
parked way down at the end.
She just said she's on.
Oh,
Okay. Well, we're going to start with
Go ahead. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. We need to start off first with a hearing on Lincoln's birthday. Actually, there's an attendance waiver that you can apply for with the state of Illinois that gives us some options on how we utilize February 12th each year. And so this is that public hearing for anyone to voice any comments in regards to the February 12th waiver. Okay. Hearing that, we won't vote on that action just yet. That'll come later in the meeting. But if there's no other comments, then we'll go ahead and close up that session of the meeting. Now I need a call to do the regular board meeting.
Chad,
Yes.
Desha,
yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jill, no, Jay, no.
Thanks, Michelle. We're going to recognize a couple of groups. We're going to start off with Coach Patton and the Effingham Wrestlers. Coach, you want to introduce everyone and tell us a little bit about the season?
Yep. I'll let them introduce themselves. My name is Jeremy Patton. I'm the assistant coach. This is my 6th year at Unit 47.
My name is David Stewart, assistant coach, my first year at the high school. Been 6 years with the youth program, wrestling program.
I'm Jeremiah Giles, and I'm just a freshman, but this is my 4th year wrestling. Colton Levesque, freshman.
Dave Braddock, this is my first year wrestling.
Neil, freshman, first year wrestling. Brennan Stewart, freshman.
Caden Stewart, senior. Trent Hayden, junior. Ben, go ahead. Ben McDowell, freshman.
Devin Henderson, assistant coach, first year with the high school, been helping the youth program for a couple of years now.
Okay, so first I want to thank you guys for recognizing them. Wrestling's, it's a tough sport. I mean, you got to be disciplined not only on the mat while you're wrestling, but you got to make a weight class every time you go out there. So you got to be disciplined in your diet, stuff like that. And with growing teenage boys, sometimes that's hard. So some stats from the year. They set the school record this year for dual team wins. So when we faced another team, they set the school record for that. This year at 13, we had 3 kids get 30 or more wins this year. Caden Stewart, Baker Moon, and Jeremiah Lorton. Caden Stewart also set the school record for most wins in a career at Effingham High School with 122. Caden also was one of only a handful of kids ever to qualify for the state tournament from Effingham, and the very first to ever win a match at that state tournament. So that's a huge accomplishment. Caden Stewart, Brendan Stewart were named second team All Apollo Conference this year. Brendan also qualified for, there's a tournament, it's a fresh soft tournament, that if you do not qualify for the big tournament, if you're a fresh soft, you can do the regional sectionals. State, he qualified for that this year, so that was a huge accomplishment. Cole Dolmack and Caden Stewart were also named Athletes of the Month at Effingham, so that's proud of them for that. And I think that is about all stat-wise I have. We had one senior this year, so we look to do big things in the future. So thank you guys again. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm just, like I said, I'm just glad that you guys allowed us to come here and recognized it. Wrestling kind of has been in the back burner for a lot of years around here, and Jeremy and myself, and now Devin's come along with us. But we've grown our youth program. When I got involved with this 6 years ago, when Caden was in 7th grade, we had 22 kids on our youth roster. With Jeremy and his wife Jessie being able to pump stuff through there, we had 75 kids after the first year that we took over. I think last year we've been keeping around 75 to 65 kids on our roster in the youth program. So we're excited about where wrestling's going to go here in Effingham, and like Jeremy said, we're expecting a lot of things. We're going to keep feeding that youth program into the high school and expect to see big things out of the Effingham wrestling program in the future.
Devin, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, same thing, guys. Thanks for the support. We hope to bring big stuff from this program. Hope to keep growing it. Hope to see good stuff coming out of it in the next couple of years. We've got a lot of tough kids. We've got a lot of tough kids coming up, so we're hoping to see this program keep improving for this Unit 40 through years.
Well, we really appreciate you coming out to visit with us here this evening, and congratulations on a great season. We'd like to get a photo of all of you up here against this wall, and then we'll have you come through and shake our hands. But thanks again so much, and congratulations.
That's the parents as well. Thank you.
Kids.
Yeah. What's he doing there?
He's
wrestling?
No, he's probably not going to continue. He's wanted to set you up. He's got an interview to get on with me. He's going to be a fireman. We're never doing the well.
Okay, everybody ready?
Congrats again, guys.
Thanks for that. Shake Steve's hand there.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Keep it going. Thank you for having us. Thanks for having us.
How you doing?
Okay, next we would like to have Mr. Roberts come up, and we're going to recognize the Aspire group.
So just a little bit of background of why we're here today. So probably about 2 or 3 months ago, Mrs. Amber Kidd, who's the principal at TriStar Aspire, which is the ROE, I call it safe school, junior high, and high school program, got in touch with me and said, hey, we have a couple of your students who would like to come talk to you about alternative ed. And they came and talked to Mr. Pullen and I and blew us away. And what they had to say and who they've become. And so we said, this is really an opportunity for more than just Mr. Pullen and I. And so I'm going to introduce Mrs. Kidd. If you don't know Mrs. Kidd, which I've already introduced her, but Mrs. Kidd is principal at TriStar Aspire, and she's got some of the staff from that as well. And then the most important people are sitting at the table right there. They're going to give you a presentation in just a minute. So Mrs. Kidd, I know has a few things to say before they get started.
Thank you, first of all, for letting us to come talk to you. Like Mr. Roberts said, they have worked really hard, not only to become what we call our student ambassadors, but also just in overcoming the obstacles that have prevented them from being successful in mainstream education. They are going to share their stories with you, so I don't want to jump on that. So, but each of them has been with us for at least a year. Where they started with us to where they're at, they have overcome a lot of hurdles, and it's been very cool to see them progress and where they're at. They are juniors, so I'm really excited to see where they go with this next year. We started with a Student Ambassadors Training Academy in September. They all went to it. We had a couple other students that went to it as well, and they started really working on their advocacy skills, their leadership. And so they started saying, where else can we go? Where can we talk? And they said, can we go talk to our administrators? And so we did that, and then brainstorming from there, where else can we go? And so they have a lot of ideas of who they want to share their stories with. So we appreciate the time that you're giving to us. Mrs. Emily Nelson is our student support specialist, teacher, dean of students, and the jack of all trades. Everybody in education wears that hat. But she teaches a class called Life Skills, and that teaches all of our students about trauma, what it does to the brain, and how it impacts them. And I'm going to let her speak on that because I will probably mess it up.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. As Mrs. Kidd said, I'm Emily Nelson. I am the student support specialist, and I do teach a life skills class. Several years ago, we decided with our program we wanted to start the process of becoming trauma informed. In order to do that, we realized that we had to recognize how the brain develops and how it regulates. And so part of that is teaching our staff and our students what happens when traumatic experiences happen to the brain. And so these students excelled in that class, really took advantage of that class, and essentially what it teaches them is our brains are wired for connection, and when we have traumatic experiences, it rewires the brain for protection. And so when our students are walking in our school buildings, we're expecting them to walk in ready to learn, and they're walking in survival mode. And so we recognize that, and so we talk to our students about these aren't excuses, these are explanations, and what we can do in order to get that resilience piece. And these students have definitely done that.
Okay, so we're going to turn it over to the girls. Our superintendent, Mrs. Wellman, wasn't able to make it. She's still in Bloomington at a meeting today, so she asked if we could record that. So we're going to start. Gia, are you ready?
It's okay if we record it too.
Absolutely. Yep.
My name is Gia Navarro. I'm a junior at Aspire High School, and in one of our classes, we've been learning about an invisible backpack, which is the traumas you experience that you carry with you in your daily life. Since my freshman year, when I was expelled from Effingham High, I have carried the weight of parent separation, watching both my parents fall into substance abuse, depression, developing an eating disorder, starting to self-harm, developing an addiction to Xanax and Adderall, being sexually assaulted, getting raped, having a miscarriage, and as a result of all of that, I attempted suicide 6 times. My habits followed me into my freshman year, and my main priority was making sure I didn't fall deeper in my addiction or depression, which didn't leave much room for me to care about school. I was expelled 4 months after starting Effingham High for smoking on the bus. As much as I wish I hadn't gotten expelled, I'm very thankful I did because it opened my eyes so much and helped me understand the importance of getting a good education and how much it would affect my future plans. Once I started Aspire, I grew so much. I started my sophomore year with 1.25 credits and below 1.0 GPA. I never thought I would finish school or even make it past 13 years old. I now am on track to graduate with my class with a 3.5 GPA. Because of so many of my teachers, I now have the motivation to finish school and go to college. I have bettered myself so much. I got treatment for my mental health and got sober. I now have plans to become an immigration lawyer.
Hello, my name is Paisley Philby, and when I was 6 years old, I entered foster care. By the age of 7, I was adopted. Then, my freshman year, I made a mistake that nearly cost me my life. Since I have fetal alcohol syndrome, I was getting sick in the bathroom and I felt like I couldn't move. The student who gave me it left me in the bathroom laying there until other teachers got there. When teachers got there, I told them what happened. They started asking me questions. I told them everything and the truth. The teacher who put me in the wheelchair pushed me through the bathroom. The teachers took me to the ambulance, taking me to the hospital. One of the teachers I looked up to, she offered to help. I still look up to her and thank her. I spent a couple hours in the hospital. The next day made me really think about what I had done and the blame and the shame that was going through my mind. Which led me to having thoughts of relapsing. And every single day throughout that, I just had the shame and everything I was carrying. And I went to Aspire my sophomore year, and I forgave a lot of people that put me through a lot, and they've helped me with opening my eyes, with just being there, and they're really good at supporting people. And yeah.
My name is Brooklyn Navarro, and in 6th grade, my mother started drinking heavily. She was never really home, so my sister and I stopped attending school to take care of my younger siblings. This continued into my 7th grade year, and in 8th grade, I did attend school, but I still didn't care about it. I got raped around the summer of 8th grade going into 9th grade, and I had a miscarriage due to that. And then in my 9th grade year, I stopped living with my mother and started living with my grandmother. I started self-harming, smoking, using pills, and purging. I later overdosed and was admitted to a psychiatric facility. And the next month, I left Texas and started living with my father in Effingham. I didn't know my father too well, and I didn't know anything about Effingham. I started going to Effingham High in late October and got expelled 2 days into the 2nd semester. I was out of school the rest of the 2nd semester, and I really started to think about what I was going to do, and I knew that I did not want to be out of school. I started Aspire my sophomore year, and when I was having my interview in Aspire, they did ask me why I got expelled, but they also asked me what I wanted to do with my future, what my plans were, what my goals were, and things like that. The staff has motivated me so much, and I am on track to graduate May of 2026. After that, I would like to continue my education and go into the medical field, becoming a paramedic. I am beyond thankful for Aspire, and I can say that I leave both my backpacks at the door every time.
So one of the things that we talk about, and Caitlin Royce is standing over here in the corner recording, she talks a lot about the invisible backpack, and that was really where these girls took this. They bring that with them every single day. And Caitlin is very good about telling them, let school be the place where you can put that backpack down. And we try to create that safe space for them at Aspire and TriStar where they can put that backpack down. And they've done a fantastic job of that. So.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had 3 messages more powerful.
I would echo that, and I would also say that this is the second time around for me, and it hasn't left my mind the first time, and I'm pretty sure that it won't leave it this time. And what I want to tell you is thank you for your willingness to come here tonight, to stand up, to speak out of where you've been and where you're going and why. There are a lot of adults in this world that can't do what you just did. And I just commend you for the program you've been in and your willingness to come here tonight and teach us a lesson. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Can we have you come around and shake our hands through here, please?
You have any problems? We take a picture. And,
No, not at all.
okay. You've got staff here too?
We do.
We would like your staff in there with us, please.
I'll get it back.
Over there.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Good luck. Thank you. Good job. Thank you. Thank you.
Great job, for sure.
Sure. Now a little bit more. Okay. Sorry. Are you ready?
Thank you. Thank you.
Once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Bowman.
Okay, we're going to move to the financial report. Mrs. Baker?
Sure. So looking at fund balance, we're showing a 9.55% decrease over last year with a net fund balance of $26,281,957. Looking at the operating funds, we're showing a decrease of 10.91% over last year with a net total of $22,731,430. Revenues we received in the Ed Fund, local revenue, $321,679. State revenue, we received $617,319. And federal revenue, we received $124,079. Those expenses over $5,000 are in your packet. And then the recommendation would be to reimburse the imprest account in the amount of $2,867.48 and the payment of bills in the amount of $874,943.54.
I know the board received the financial packet in advance. Does anyone have any questions for Mrs. Baker this evening? Okay. Hearing none, I'll need a motion and a second to approve the financial report to reimburse the interest account in the amount of $2,867.48 and the payment of bills in the amount of $874,943.54.
Motion.
Motion by Steve. Second by Andrew. Roll.
Erica?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Jane, yes. Chad?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Next, we have the consent agenda. There are a lot of different meeting minutes for HR and athletics, the regular board meeting minutes from 2/24, as well as facility transportation committee. We also have the cafeteria report from Ryan. We have a student teacher list. What's on that? Let's see. We've got 4 on the student teacher list. And fundraisers are in there, as well as some field trips. Any questions in regards to the consent agenda? I'll need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda.
Motion?
Motion by Erica.
Second.
Second, Steve.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Desha,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
Next, we have some correspondence. I'll pass these around, but in summary, we have thank yous from Diane Arnold for the flowers in memory of her mother, Charlene Busher, who was a school bus driver for our district. The family of Jim Zimbalin and the flowers in memory, and EJHS Stew Company and Mustang Outreach for the donation of smiles. Also include our 2 letters of apology from boys that damaged some property at Southside School.
Oh, that's nice.
And then next we have the superintendent's report.
Okay, under superintendent's report, first and foremost, the Education Foundation met on March 10th. Thank you. Items that were discussed there were teacher appreciation days coming up. They do a great job with that. I think what was the theme this year? Wasn't it, what? Basketball, March Madness, yeah, which was kind of neat. So we appreciate that for our staff. Really don't see much else on there that probably warrants to be discussed right here. The minutes are in there. If you got questions of what's going on there, reach out to me and I can get you some more information about that. Next is the enrollment. Total enrollment as of February 28th, 2025 is 2,331 students. This is 3 more students than the previous month and 45 more students than the previous year. Now, if you pay attention to the latest and greatest athletic announcement, where our high school number is down. That is true, but for some reason overall as a district, we are up. So I haven't really dug into that, but my assumption is we've got some small classes coming through and maybe even have some more small classes coming through that our numbers at the high school level will potentially stay down for a little while, I would assume. But I think that will catch itself back up because again, our overall numbers are up, which is a plus. 2 FOIAs. I don't know if you want to touch on that at all, really.
It's an EIU reporter, just, I think they're doing a story. So I think they requested from a lot of public schools in the area.
Okay.
And there's 2 of them, and we got another one today, and there's
One last week.
There's a thread going around, of course, all superintendents in the state of Illinois. A little bit frustrated because this takes a massive amount of time away from what we really like to do. But we're required to do it at a high level, so we try to do the best we can. Semester exams, like May 15th and 16th with the new calendar. If it's not, we'll get it.
We're going to say that it is.
Okay. Okay. Michelle and I've gone through it, so we think that's where it would probably fall.
It's a Thursday, Friday, Friday.
Yeah.
In May, before graduation.
Unit 40 staff, end of the year dates to work with. Staff will work a full day on May 19th, 2025. Students will attend only the AM half of the day. And Teachers Institute is May 20th, 2025. We will get information out to the board in the next month or so about our end of the year. We'd really like for you to be a part of that if you can be there for our luncheon. As we move forward, that's kind of nice having you around if you can get off work and you can be around. Online registration information. The first window of registration will open on April 22nd, close on May 9th at midnight. Second window of registration will open on July 14th and close on August 1st at midnight. Returning parents will register their students in campus portal, parent portal. New families will use the new student registration link. Details can be found on our website, www.unit40.org. We went to that last year and it seemed to work for the most part. We're still working some kinks out, I believe. But it does help us prepare staffing and programs and things like that, rather than waiting until the last minute. Our hope is this year we'll be able to get transportation information out at a much earlier date than what we have done in the past. Not going to promise a deadline or date on that right now because we're still working through some of those things. Next one is Chad has something for, if you don't mind reading that.
Sure. So the Illinois Association of School Boards, they do recognize school board members from time to time for individual time and efforts. So not only does Jane Willenberg donate a lot of time here just for Unit 40 School District, she also represents us in some of the other committees throughout the state as well. You've been on the school board for how long?
9 years.
9 years. And so this came from the state of Illinois.
Why,
I'd like to
thank you.
present that to you. So thank you so much for all that you do for us.
We'll get a picture afterwards.
Oh. Yeah. I'll make sure I have my food.
Forgot to tell you that was coming, sorry.
Right.
It's not on the notes that were shared with you. And the last item I have was set a date for the May 2025 board meeting. This is an election year, so once the new board is seated, I believe it will be at the April board meeting. We would look into that, but trying to plan a little bit further ahead right now instead of waiting for that. What are your thoughts about that? We were suggesting, was it May 19th? Is that the?
Sorry.
That's the 19th?
Thought it was the 19th. Huh?
Yeah, that's the Monday.
May
Oh, the
19th.
Monday after
Oh.
graduation.
I thought I was looking for a Thursday for some reason.
Well, that's for
Future.
next round.
Oh.
Just trying to prompt you to think about when we set them for another year's worth, to keep in mind possibly moving them to a Thursday. And you're going to say, why? You probably don't want to hear that because everybody and their brother does it on Thursday, I think, which makes it tough maybe for the media. But here's the difficulty I feel for you and us. We're putting out an agenda, the final agenda on a Friday for the next Monday. I'd rather put that agenda out on a Monday or a Tuesday within the week, confines of the week. So we're not worried about, I do a lot of work prior to the board meeting on Saturday and Sunday with tidying up some things here and there, just last minute stuff that just seems to happen today in our business. I know you don't want to spend the weekend, and I know you were yesterday a little bit as you shared. So it'd be nice if that's just something to think about. Does not have to be decided tonight. It's just something I want to throw on your radar to potentially consider once the new board is seated. Date for May, okay with the 19th?
Yeah, fine.
19th it is. That's it for me. And you are on. Yep, okay.
Pretty much.
Wherever you are comfortable, here is, so Ann is with Stiefel. Ann has done some extensive work for us. I don't know, for what would you say, the last couple of years for me?
Sure.
In this district, sounds good?
Yeah.
We are approaching a point where I've asked the board
Thank
to
you.
be in a position to potentially move forward with the facility proposal that we had sought prior to the sales tax referendum question being on the ballot. I didn't walk into this district 3 years ago, and you didn't seek the referendum question for the fourth time, and the first 3 times without there being a need. There is still a need, regardless of how you slice or dice revenue streams or how you pay for things, there is still a need. And I've gone back to this board after the failure of the 1% sales tax referendum and asked this board if they feel we still have a need. And overwhelmingly, the comment from you was yes. I went back and asked our administrators and some staff and some people, and they said, yes, what can we do next? So I've done the best that I can to prepare for you what next means. So I thought it'd be advantageous for all of you tonight, because we've talked about a phase one. The phase one is very similar to what's been talked about for 18 months probably in this district. There are tweaks that can be made to that, but I asked Ann to come in tonight to give you a better understanding from a financial standpoint of what it means without the 1% sales tax revenue that everybody, they got voted down. Now, what does that mean for us moving forward? I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right. Do you have a USB drive that I can give?
Oh, yeah, you might need that.
Sorry, that's okay.
Sorry.
All right. That's the extent of my tech knowledge. All right. Well, please interrupt me, and we can dive into as much or as little of this as you want. But I've tried to provide an overview for you tonight, just to give you a sense of what I have plenty of copies. Anybody else? Here you go.
Anybody else want a copy?
Anybody else?
Anyone? Okay.
Come grab one if you want.
Our folks, I have it electronically if you want it later.
All right, we're going to start with just an overview of the district's outstanding bonds. You currently have about $18 million of bonds outstanding that were sold in 2019. And this next slide just provides some very detailed calculations, but the bottom line is there's two different statutory provisions that dictate how much borrowing a school district can do. One of them is your overall statutory debt limit, which is simply 13.8%. Why it's not 14 or 13, I can't tell you. It's 13.8% of the district's EAV, your equalized assessed valuation, which is your overall tax base. And then you subtract from that the 18 million of outstanding bonds that you have. So in general, you have about $73 million of statutory borrowing capacity. You could borrow more than that with voter approval, but 73 million is your statutory borrowing limit without voter approval. And then you have a sort of a subset of that is your working cash borrowing capacity. And this is important because we are going to be talking about working cash as one of the tools available to you. It's a more complicated formula. I won't bore you with the details, but bottom line, of the 73 million of overall borrowing capacity you have, 16.3 million of it is working cash borrowing capacity, okay? And we will be talking about that number in a little bit. These are your current 2019 bonds and the associated bond tax rate that is on your property tax bills currently. So you'll see over on the left, those are the years, depending on how you look at years, fiscal year, tax year, so on. So the top row is where you are currently. It's actually, you're moving into the second row now, fiscal year 26. So EAV of about 9% growth expected. Your total bond payments are about $1.6 million for a current bond tax rate of about 24 cents. Okay. And you'll see we are assuming a little bit of future EAV growth over here. So 9% is a pretty solid number you're hearing from the county, but then 3% for the next few years, 2% for the next few years after that, and then 1% thereafter. Those are just estimates, but that's what the model is based on. Okay, so what I'm here to talk to you tonight is this version of your phase one facility proposal. As Mr. Johnson said, this is not my doing. You guys can tweak this, but this is what I'm building my model around, is the new K2 building with a gym, the south side renovations, central renovation, and all the paving projects, okay? And that totals about $55 million.
So what the board's already agreed to is the bottom two, central renovations and the parking lots. So that's another piece of the conversation at some point, if you want to, that, $5 or $6 million, we're already going to be seeking bids for parking lots and library and things like that, but those other pieces are not. And again, this is not set in concrete. even to that statement right there. We have to bid and bring back to the board all of those parking lots and all of those projects. So this is all trying to look at a crystal ball.
All right, so non-referendum borrowing options without the sales tax, just regular bonds, not supported by the separate sales tax. There is statutory authority now to build a new building if it increases pre-K or kindergarten classroom space. Okay, so obviously the new K2 building accomplishes that. And then we also have 3 different types of bond tools available to you without referendum. One is called a health life safety bond. We're going to talk about all 3 of these different tools. So health life safety bonds are the simplest type of borrowing to do because you are actually funding improvements that are mandated by the state to meet your health life safety requirements. Okay. So all they require is a public hearing and board approval. They are very straightforward. But in order to issue them, they have to be for health life safety eligible projects. Okay, so not everything on that list we just said. In fact, most everything on that list for phase 1 is not health life safety eligible. But there is some of it that is.
At this point.
Correct. Working cash fund bonds, I already talked to you about. We have about 16.3 million of working cash borrowing capacity. Working cash fund bonds can be used for any capital projects or could be used for operating needs if you needed it for that purpose. Most districts use them for capital purposes. And they're not limited to state approvals for health life safety projects like health life safety bonds. And then the last type of borrowing tool is called a funding bond. And funding bonds are used when the other 2 tools aren't enough to support the needs. And it is a 2-step borrowing process, which I'll walk you through on the next page. But I wanted you to understand sort of the steps involved in non-referendum bonds, specifically working cash bonds and funding bonds. Both require, it's basically a 3-board step process. The first is the board has to approve what we call a resolution of intent to issue the bonds. And from that resolution of intent, a publication is published in the local paper to notify the community that you intend to issue those bonds and what the purpose of the bonds is and what the security of the bonds is. And it begins what we call a petition period. It's a 30-day petition period. Once that publication happens, there's 30 days for the community to pick up a petition at the district office. And if they don't wish for the district to move forward with the sale of the bonds without voter approval, then they can sign the petition. And if 10% of your registered voters sign a petition within that 30-day period and file it back with the district, then you can't proceed with the bonds and unless you get voter approval or the petitions are deemed to be invalid. Okay? So first step, you pass that resolution of intent. Second step, we publish that notice in the paper, which begins your 30-day petition period. Next step, you hold a public hearing at your next board meeting, which is just like other public hearings that you hold, where you're simply giving the public an opportunity to speak. And then the last step is actually approving the sale of the bonds. Okay, so it takes a minimum of 90 days. Sometimes more, it would be a little bit more because of the debt certificates that I'll walk you through in the next slide. Are there any questions so far? Okay. All right, so for the proposed $55 million that I outlined, my understanding from speaking with the architects is that about $3 million of it is health life safety eligible. So that would be the cleanest way to fund that portion. We have the 16.3 million of working cash borrowing capacity, and the balance could be funded with funding bonds. But funding bonds do require that first the district has a claim or a financial obligation that the funding bonds are paying off. That's what a funding bond does. It's paying off a financial obligation of the district. So what this process does is first, the district issues what we call a debt certificate, which is basically a short-term, it's like a bridge loan, okay? It's like a construction loan when you're building a house. That's what a debt certificate is, okay? We issue the debt certificate, which is secured by the district's operating budget. It is not secured by the bond levy. Secured by the district's operating budget. And most likely that would be sold to local banks. They are most likely to be supportive of this because it's a short-term bridge loan. And that is the best way to finance a bridge loan, is through a bank, okay?
And we have reached out to them.
We have.
You have and I have.
That's right. And the banks have been supportive, which is kudos to your relationship with your banks. So we would issue the debt certificates. They are only outstanding as long as it takes us to go through all of these steps that we talked about right here. The notice of intent to issue bonds and 30-day petition period, so on and so forth. So we issue the debt certificates, and then we start all the steps that I just said. Then we start the resolution of intent, the petition period, so on and so forth. While all of that is going on, the funds from the debt certificates will literally just sit in a bank account. It just sits there until we finish the full rest of the process. And then when we get all the way to the end, you would have the full proposed 55 million or whatever the final amount is that you would determine. And the debt certificates actually get paid off and they get replaced by the funding bonds. And all of that would then be on your levy. Okay? Does that make sense? It's not an uncomplicated plan of finance. So I'm trying to be as clear and transparent as possible. But it is basically 4 different types of funds. You are using every tool in your tool belt. This would be what a potential timeline would look like if you wanted to move as quickly as possible to get funds to start your projects. You could obviously do it slower than this, but you really can't move any faster than this, okay? So it would start with approving the sale of the debt certificates at your April board meeting. Actually, you're approving the sale of the debt certificates. Yeah, I'm sorry. Approve the issuance in April, and then in May, you get the money on the debt certificates. On the May 19th board meeting, we start the resolution of intent that I mentioned, which would begin the 30-day petition period. And then you hold your public hearing in June. In July, you approve the sale of the bonds. In August, you would pay your bond money. Okay? So again, that's as fast as you can move. You can slow it down any amount you want, but that's, unless you hold special board meetings, which you could do, and you could speed it up a little bit. But otherwise, this is pretty much how the timeline works.
This has also been coordinated, please understand, with the architects and the CM for the purpose of completing especially the K-2 building, because that drives the ship on all construction that we're talking about in phase 1. Can't really do anything to Southside building in moving our daycare, potentially if we want to do that, until we have the K-2 building so that they can move into the K-2 building. And make sense? So there's pieces to that and the timeline in order to right now be in a K-2 building. If we follow this timeline from a financial standpoint, aligning with the construction puts it at about the middle of 2028, right? That's what we talked about, I think. 27, 28, maybe 27, 28 school year.
Starting 28.
Might be 20, starting at 28. So as you stated, if you wanted to do some of this later, you're also slowing down the project and put yourself in the position that you would, if you moved any of this back, you would potentially not be in August of 28. So that's just something to keep in mind.
All right, this next slide is what does this mean to me and the community? So potentially 55 million of new bonds, and we ran this 2 different ways, one on a 15-year payback and one on a 20-year payback. For the magnitude of projects you're doing, we would often, most of the time, see at least a 20-year payback because the majority of the cost of that is building a new building, which clearly has a long useful life. So we often would see most districts financing that for 20 or more years. You can finance that up to 30 if you want. But I know through the conversations related to the sales tax that you do have additional needs at the high school. So I ran this for 15 and 20 years. We can run it for a longer mortgage if you want, but this is just a starting point. So the 15-year payback results in a 62-cent property tax increase, which is 17% increase above the district's current tax rate. And the 20-year payback is 47 cents or a 13% increase. And it's flat for the whole life of the bonds, with the caveat that it's based on the moderate assessed valuation growth that we've assumed. So to the extent assessed valuation grows more than we've assumed, the tax rate will fall over time, which your current bonds have done. This is what it means on homes, home values. So the left-hand side is that's home value. It's not the assessed value on the home, it's the market value. This is for the 20-year payback. So on a $200,000 home, for example, I think the median home value in the district is $240,000. So somewhere between that $200,000 and $300,000 number is what you would be looking at monthly and annually for a homeowner in the district on the 20-year payback. And then this is the 15-year payback. And you could look at 18 years, you can look at 22 years. There's nothing hard and fast here. You can look at 50 million instead of 55 million. All of this is just giving you a general outline. The $6 million of projects that you've already authorized and you have out to bid, some of that's held like safety eligible, the rest you could do is working with cash, would follow exactly the same process I just outlined. We just wouldn't need the debt certificate stuff, but otherwise it would be everything that we just talked about. Obviously, the less you borrow, the less the tax impact. And with that, I will be happy to answer any questions. I can also talk about the sales tax if anybody maybe thought there might be some questions on that. I can try to answer those if you have any questions on that.
Does anybody have any questions?
What is the plan of action if in 2 years a 1% sales tax passes? How does that work? If our plan is to possibly get these property taxes to then decrease.
You can use the sales tax revenue to make bond payments for bonds that you've previously sold before the sales tax passed. So you could use the sales tax, you could use all of the sales tax money, half of the sales tax money, 20% of the sales tax money to apply toward these bond payments and basically abate a portion of your bond levy every year. So that option would always be available to the board. That is an annual decision of each board. So when you vote that, you can state that intention, and then every year the board will have to vote to abate whatever amount they decide to abate that year.
The increase on the property taxes, go back to your 47 cent one. This affected, go back one more to, yeah. So when would this take effect on their actual property tax? Because it wouldn't be the next levy.
It would be
December.
next summer, so like 15 months from now, 16 months from now, it would be that summer.
So in that time, the 1% sales tax could potentially be on the ballot again. I mean, we might as well talk about the elephant in the room, which would be March of 26. The revenue would come in, if it passed, by October, start coming in October of 26. So that levy, the revenue could come in before you set the levy. affected by increasing the property taxes.
No, be a year.
1 year behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be a year behind that.
Okay, so you gotta go through 1 year of whatever you do. But the entire project won't be done, so when do you have to have all the 55 million if that's what the project costs?
Well, that's an interesting question because this does assume that we fund all 55 million at once.
Right.
But you don't have to do that. You could
Sure.
stagger it based on what your construction schedule is. So you could sell half this summer and half next summer, for example. It would
Which
literally
is
just
what I would
depend
recommend.
on what I would recommend if you're doing that you authorize all of it so that you don't have to go through all of those steps that I talked about at the beginning, 2 years in a row, because the authorization is good for 3 years. So you can run that notice in the paper, you can do your public hearing, you can do everything to check all your boxes. But then the actual sale of the bond would only be half or whatever. We would actually just work with the architect on what the construction timeline would be, and we would figure out a break.
And then you could just sell bonds again if you needed to without doing all this.
Correct. And that's the piece that right now, you have the bonding capacity of $72 million. So you as a board right now could seek 72 instead of 55 million, just hypothetically saying, 72 million, but you might only use 40 million of that in the next 3 years. Okay? So what, and the reason I set the bar at 55, because at one time we were 48. But if you take 2 years, you talk about inflation, and I just went off of 5%, 2 years of inflation, because we have a year ago is when we started talking about 48 million. So we're going to be at least a year, and we're at least a year out from build, probably a year out from there, from completion. Go inflation plus tariffs. I mean, there's a lot of pieces, and what I don't want to do is put this district in a position, if we're doing this, don't go 48 million, go 55, just in case it was, let's say it comes back at 48,500,000. That's what we need overall. You have that capacity because you passed it at 55. But if you only pass it at 48, you're 48. We have to go back through the whole process again to get anything above 48, correct?
That's right. So if you authorize 55, you don't have to sell. That's fine.
You control that as a board.
What is the rate on the bonds that you use to do these calculations?
Let's see, I have the actual numbers here with me. We used pretty current interest rates, so that came in, we've had it them slightly, but not massively, up 4.65%. Which is about 1/4% above where they would be if we were selling them today.
Which is, I mean, compared to the last, 5 to 7 years, one of the higher points.
So we hit sort of rock bottom lows coming out of COVID. And the last 2 years, we've trended back to more historical, still lows. If I had one of those graphs with me, you would see we're still bottom 25% from an interest rate standpoint, but we're nowhere near where we were in 2021.
And then one of the things I was thinking about was the audit that we have on an annual basis. What kind of impact will a project like this or a bond effect have on our audit? You know, how we're
Financial rating.
Those financial profile score, yeah. It'll be a factor that brings one of those scores down. One of those scores does relate to leverage, and this is obviously, it's increasing your mortgage. So it is part of your financial profile score.
So maybe we can ask them to forecast what this impact would have.
Can you forecast that? No, you mean our auditor would have to forecast?
Yeah, I mean, it's an easy formula to crunch. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's very useful.
Yeah.
It's not going to bring you down 3 notches.
I would just like to have.
But if you're right on the edge between one or the other, it'll flip you down.
We just want to keep that rating. So it'd be good to know that the impact.
For a district your size, you are very under leveraged currently. So that at the moment is a credit plus from that standpoint. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, again, I think the district has, the board, and they continue to, administration have done a great job of keeping property taxes. That's just been it's really been a goal. But at some point, facilities can't sacrifice from the continual low or lower property taxes. So again, we went down a road, I felt best option was on the radio was a sales tax. Well, now the only option left for facility upgrades is what we're talking about right here. Now, another option is, once you go down this road, you could always revisit the sales tax for the 5th time. So from my personal standpoint, it's just reverse psychology on the project. Number one, you made a decision that there's a need. You provided people the opportunity to make a choice that was the best, with 67% of the revenue come off the interstate. For some reason, that didn't happen. So now we've got to go back to the well and say, now it's got to come from taxpayers if we truly want facility upgrades. And I can tell you right now, we set meetings again this afternoon, and us being spread out all over this community is a detriment to the educational process, communication process, the fidelity of what we do on a daily basis to try to produce the best of the best and put them in a position to be as good as anybody else. And I think we do a great job of it, but we've got to get some of these things in place to help with that. So I think it allows you to get the project going and then come back and say, here's the deal. There's still another option. Sales tax can pay for this. And at that time, I think you would say, take all the sales tax money and put it towards the bond payment. It's just that's my opinion, for what it's worth.
Any other thoughts, questions? Thanks, Ann. This is very helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Happy to be here, good to see you.
Great job. Appreciate it. Okay.
Next on the agenda is the Lincoln birthday attendance waiver. What's that?
USB. No, that's mine. It goes in there.
Oh, it's
I wasn't smart enough to put it in first.
Dang.
Don't hold that against me, Brian. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. So at this point, we're going to vote on the attendance or the Lincoln birthday attendance waiver. I need a motion and a second to approve the waiver of school code 105/24-2D. Motion. Motion by Steve. Second by Andrew. Roll.
Jane, yes. Chad?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Thanks. Next in the packets is the SEPCO purchasing cooperative approval. The district participates in the cooperative where multiple districts join together to purchase food. Annual approval is needed to continue the co-op with the other school districts. It is a cost savings for us and allows us to use our combined volume for better pricing. Any questions or comments on the SEPCO agreement?
Ryan told me today, since he's been here, I think it's 2, 3 years, 4 years maybe now. 2 or 3. There's 4 additional schools that have joined. I think he's got one that's coming on the books as of this week. So that's a good thing because again, like Jake said, it helps the volume increase and the price go down.
I need a motion and a second to approve Unit 40's participation in the SEPCO food co-op at a cost of $100. All the cost of $100. Motion by Andrew.
Second?
Second by Erica.
Jane, yes. Chad?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Erica?
Yes.
Andrew?
Next is the approval of the 2025-26 school calendar. The starting date will be Monday, August 11th, and Tuesday, August 12th for staff, August 13th for students. EHS first semester finals will be prior to Christmas break. Any questions about the 25-26 school calendar?
Just for the record, I think it probably is good for everybody to know how that process works. I've been working on that for the better part of 2 months. Involve the union leadership on that, on both unions, involve our administration, our leadership. And I don't know if you've ever asked people, a room full of people, their opinion on anything, but it generally bounces all over. So we've tried to take into consideration, and really, to be honest with you, everybody that engages in it's really got a legitimate claim. One of the biggest ones on there was, we're starting too early. And I go, okay, that just means you go into summer longer. You pick it. And every time I have that conversation, it generally goes back to, let's go ahead and start a little earlier. Because when we get to this time of the year, people are ready to do, kids are ready to go do something else. All of our teachers would stay all summer and work for us, I know. So I'm not worried about that. I just worry about keeping those kids too long. Right, girls?
Do any of the seniors here care about the 25, 26? That's what I thought. This is one crowd you could just get.
Absolutely. But a quick one.
So I need a motion and a second to approve the 2025-26 school calendar as presented.
Motion.
Motion by Erica,
Second.
second by Steve. Roll.
Chad,
Yes.
Jessica,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes.
Okay. Next, Mr. Poland, you got some
Sure.
information on the handbook?
Yep, so out of the discipline code review meetings, we each meet individually as buildings, and then we come together as a unit district. And we just have a couple recommendations, not anything big, but I do want to run through those and get your approval on those. First one for the high school, the only thing we have, and this one pertains to co-curricular activities and attendance. So we sat down with the principals of both buildings, and ours is very similar with the junior high as well. The athletic directors were involved, and then the assistant principal. So currently, right now, the way our handbook reads is you just have to be there for half of the day in attendance to participate in anything extracurricular after school. So that would be a fall play, scholastic bowl, any kind of sport, anything like that. Our recommendation to the board is that a student has to be here the second half of the day. So either by 4A lunch or 4A class, and then they remain there for the entire second half of the day. At the junior high school, it would be 5th hour because they have 9 class periods. It just seems a little silly for us that a kid would go there all morning and then leave the rest of the second half of the day and then show back up for practice. It just seems, again, silly for us. So if they're sick in the morning, that's fine, but they've got to be there the entire second half of the day. If they do have a doctor's appointment or something like that, we've got down here as well. If they're missing PM classes for a doctor's appointment, they have a medical note or anything like that, they just bring that medical note to the office. We're typically there until about 3:45, so practices are starting then. They give us the doctor note, and then they're able to participate that night in athletics. So again, that would be the high school and junior high, both of us. So any questions on those two recommendations? Okay. Also at the junior high, just for eligibility, they have athletes who have an F for 3 non-consecutive weeks in a single season are on what they call coach's probation and subject for removal. Coaches have the discretion to remove the athlete from the team. So again, if we have students continuing habitually ineligible for because of academics and eligible for athletics, the coach can just remove them after 3 weeks if need be. So, any questions on that one? Okay. The ZAP policy is also listed there. You should have that. That's again something for the junior high. That's something that's been in place for a lot of years. Their Zero program. They're just putting it in their handbook. That's all they're doing there. Okay. Nothing for Central School. Nothing for South Side. And honestly, ELC and East Side. It's just some verbiage that they're adding in there regarding their behavior initiative and things like that. It's not really a policy change. It's just some verbiage they're wanting to put in their handbook. Okay. Any questions, comments? All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the 2025-26 handbook changes as presented by Mr. Poland here this evening. Motion by Steve.
Second.
Second by Erica. Roll.
Tesha,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes. Chad.
Yes. Next on the agenda is the IHSA membership renewal. Annually, the district must renew its membership with the IHSA groups. IHSA fees are waived, no cost, and attached are the renewal forms. One thing I did want to mention, speaking of athletics, Coach Schaefer was recognized as Coach of the Year for girls basketball in our district. We should make him come.
Cheerleading sponsor too, right? Lisa.
She received an award too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Lisa was, Lisa Sig.
Any-
Also.
Any questions on the IHSA membership renewal?
No.
I need a motion and a second to approve the district's annual membership in IHSA for 2025-26. Motion Andrew,
Second?
second Erica. Roll.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes. Chad.
Yes.
Tesha.
Yes.
Next is the student iPad laptop manual, 25, 26. You know what I mean?
It's just something the district put in place a few years back, and just update it. And so there's just a few items, being updated on pages 14 and 15. Added and modified language after consulting with legal to allow for the newest Google policy change, which requires parental consent for additional services as Google Translate and YouTube. You know, there's gonna, this is gonna be annual. Once you're in that hole, you're in that hole. So
once you make that first commitment.
We're there. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just updating to align with that.
I'll need a motion and a second. Anybody have any questions about that agreement? Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the 25-26 version of the student iPad laptop manual. I'll make a motion. Need a second.
Second.
Steve?
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Tisha,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Next item is approval to move forward with the purchase of additional protection for cybersecurity. This is more specific to our Google accounts. You know, we have a cybersecurity program in place already. This is in addition to that. I think we all agree we want to have as much security as possible when it comes to that. Any questions or additional comments in regards to that program?
Just protects our Google accounts, and we don't really want to share anymore because we don't want
Okay.
to know what we're doing, so.
I'll need a motion and a second to approve the cybersecurity software upgrade proposal for $11,000 annually.
Motion?
Motion by Erica,
I'll second.
second by Jane. Roll.
Andrew,
Yes.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Tisha,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica.
Yes.
And then our last item is to amend the 24-25 school calendar due to the use of 2 emergency days. I need a motion and a second to amend the 24-25 school calendar to reflect the use of 2 emergency days on January 2nd, or January 6th and 7th of 2025.
Motion?
Motion by Erica. I'll second. Roll.
Jane, yes, Chad,
Yes.
Tisha,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Andrew.
Yes.
Next, we will be going into a closed session, and we appreciate everybody coming to join us here today. We need your papers signed. Any of us up here can sign those.
Already got it.
You got it?
Okay. Thanks for visiting, everyone.